I'm Chad Pytel, a developer and the founder and CEO of thoughtbot, and I'm joined today by Justin Bowen, the creator of Active Agent, an exciting open source project that provides a Rails native way to build AI features into your applications. Justin, thanks for joining me at Open
Thanks.
Summit.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. I'm looking forward to getting to pair with you again on this.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I've long held and been shouting from the rooftops that Ruby and Ruby on Rails is great for products that use AI because so much of AI development today for most products is actually just API communication with external services. And
Yeah,
Rails is great at that.
definitely.
And we're doing a lot of that development at Thoughtbot, but um, it's a lot of as we do it more and more, we can see patterns emerging. There's a lot of redundant code either throughout an application or across the different projects that we do. And I think that's where Active Agent comes in.
Yeah, the idea is to give you that convention that we typically find for developing web applications in Rails, but for those AI features and leveraging the same gems that we're used to using from Rails, like Active Record and Action View.
So today we're going to be implementing some of this type of functionality in our Rails application, but we're going to be using Active Agent to do it, right?
Yeah, and I've decided to go ahead and uh, clone Writebook from 37 Signals or once. So yeah, and I'll be publishing it so everyone can follow along. There is the finished version already published, if you want to check that out. But the stages that I'll be stepping through will also be on there.
Awesome.
And yeah, I think might be good to just kind of do a bit of an introduction,
Hmm.
myself and the framework and why I decided to do this. So I'll share some slides that I put together and we can take it from there. And I'm just going to share my whole screen because YOLO. And yeah, happy to be at Open Summit. And this is the Rails AI with ActiveAgent. So we're going to build some AI features into a Rails app. And some people might not know who I am, but I've been doing Rails for almost 20 years now, basically since I was in high school. Did some community college classes in Java and found Ruby and decided that's what I wanted to do and dropped Java. And yeah, since then, I've done a lot of computer vision with uh, animals, cats, cows, and also in health tech as well. So I've done a few Ruby and Rails talks on these topics. Um, and like you said, you no longer need to think about the metal and GPU utilization or Onyx runtime, those kinds of things. It's all just web requests. And, one of those talks, someone asked, like, why AI in Ruby? And really, it's like, why not AI in
Hmm.
Ruby? I think now more than ever, the Ruby community has an opportunity to take advantage of Rails and the foundational frameworks that we have. I did see a bit of Tim's talk earlier, and I think there's a lot of opportunity just throughout the ecosystem with things like Ruby LLM, which will be coming later this year, support for that in ActiveAgent. And yeah, going back to Ruby on Rails, it really is all about the gems we made along the way.
Hmm.
There's so much of a foundation built into Rails that really it's about leveraging things like active job and active record, action view for prompting. And all of the compression of the web complexity is really what we're taking advantage of here. So active record stores our context, all of the messages or logs, and action view is what we're using for templating. So you can think of the action prompt interface as action views that talk to the LLM and provide it with instance variables so that you can render dynamic prompts to your agents. And then action controller is actually the foundation of the agent class. So similar to action mailer, active agent classes are just controllers. So when you create a public method, that method is tied to an action that can render views. And then you can also perform these generation jobs in the background. And then you can take advantage of things like action cable, and you can interact with action mailer and action mailbox as like an input and output. And so again, all of this gives us, let's see, skip through all this because I just talked through it all. Yeah, so it gives us contextual models, it gives us prompt messages, it gives us our active agents, and then it gives us conventions, because that's something that I've seen a lot working with clients is everyone's kind of throwing in text into their Ruby classes as their prompts and using string interpolation like that.
Mm-hmm.
And we could just use action view like we already have. And generation jobs like we already have. Async jobs is another thing that I'm really excited about. If you're familiar with all the async work that Samuel Williams, IOquatics, has done, it's something that I'm really excited. Just talking about like Puma versus Falcon, I think it's going to be big moving forward. So yeah, I think, I mean, slides are kind of self-explanatory. We can get into the code in a second. I'll close this and yeah, we can get started.
I think
And
that convention is one of the things that really stands out to me, and it's one of the things that makes Rails Rails and have been successful. Is that convention over configuration, seeing patterns in web development, and empowering developers to be able to do things quickly. And that's, we saw that in the early days of Rails. There was so much low hanging fruit, even just file attachments. Like when we created Paperclip, it was about different ways of seeing how this was done and saying, here's a convention for how to do this. It's been a little while since there was like this new area where we could see patterns and build upon what Rails has. So it's cool that there's something like this now.
yeah, and we're just getting started. I
Yeah.
mean, this is like, I think it's officially a year. I think Halloween was like our target release for like an initial beta last year. And it's already November 1st where I am. So yeah, it's 3 a.m. in Japan. But yeah, we've made a lot of progress, and there is a V1 in the works, and there's a project or a discussion on GitHub if people want to hop on there and check it out. This is the repo that I'll be working in and sharing a branch that will have tagged commits, so people can, watch the recording and go through it in their own time. And um, this is the repository for ActiveAgent.
Cool. And
And
as
then
we're working here, I'll be monitoring the chat. So feel free to drop questions in along the way. And I'll stop Justin and ask them when it makes sense.
sounds good. Um, oh yeah, I was actually just looking at this. So I have two versions running right now. One that I know works, and then on a different port, I have the work in progress that we'll be working on here. So just make sure I cannot log in. Cool. Well, so before that, let's disable herb because that was what I was having an issue with earlier. Um, Apparently Writebook doesn't conform to the conventions that we've now got in herb. So I was gonna use that as like a tutorial and like visualization of some of the features, but
Mhm.
let's see where reaction. I already just need to restart the server. Okay, now it's gone. But yeah, when you click on this with reaction view running, it throws an error because it's not following the conventions.
I see.
So if you're not familiar with Writebook, it's from Once. Did they get once.com? Yeah, they did. Cool. So you can download it, a clean copy that's not been modified with ActiveAgent. And it's really just like a markdown editor and publisher. And so what we'll be doing is taking a look at adding some AI features to the toolbar and also to just the image upload feature. So when you upload an image, it can view the image and auto-generate a caption or content for you.
Great.
So
Sounds good.
let me see first. I'm gonna want to log in here too. There we go. I just typed it wrong. And so I'll give a demo of the features all working. And then we'll do a walkthrough of how to get to that state, if that makes sense. And we can click through the code at any time along the way. But so we have a writing assistant agent and a file analyzer agent. And these are basically what are going to take care of all of the features that we're going to be adding into the Writebook toolbar. And so should be able to restart the server.
It says the server's already running.
It's not, it doesn't know. Cool. Now this one, if it has the database in there, because it is using SQLite. Cool. So this is all my tests from earlier when I was working on it. But now you can see there are these new features in the toolbar. So originally, it's just a basic markdown editor and a file uploader. But what we'll be adding is the ability to say, take some content and either expand on the content, summarize the content, grammar fix, those kinds of things. So if we take the entire thing and generate a summary, it should add like a TLDR at the bottom of the page. And there you go. And so there's that. And then there's also the image upload feature that should drop in an image where the cursor was, wherever that was. Ah, here it is. And if we save, we can preview it. And that's the image that I just uploaded with the caption generated by the AI. And so this is the end state, and we'll see how far we get to getting there. But I just wanted to demo working state before I clumsily fumble around and try to get back to the working state. So, yeah, I think last time we did this, Chad, there were some issues, and that's another reason I wanted to just have a working copy ready to go, so we could talk through any of these features from here on.
Awesome.
And
So for those of you watching, I would love if people want to share in the chat whether they are doing this kind of development in their applications at all, or interesting applications, or if you've used Active Agent before. So if you're watching and want to drop something in the chat about what you're working on, it'd be fun to see those roll in.
yeah, and also just to like clarify, this isn't like a coding agent. It's building AI features into your application.
Yeah.
And that's some like this actually, Claude definitely helped build this out. I'm not great with stimulus and that sort of thing. So you can use AI coding agents to get a lot of cool things done. But we can also build a lot of cool features into our Rails apps with AI. Part of the reason I did this was last year, uh, before I started working on this, um, maybe over the summer, I think is when I started. Um, I was working as a staff AI engineer at a Rails shop, and I thought I was going to do more Rails and Python, maybe with some factory and Sidekick in between, like I had been doing. And I
Mm-hmm.
ended up building Next.js apps around the Rails monolith.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, all the business logic's already in this Rails app. Why don't we build cool Rails AI features? And again, ended up just doing Next.js for
Yeah.
about a year.
What was the thinking behind that on their
I
side?
think part of it was just, if you are familiar with the Ruby toolbox, like the
Mm-hmm.
directory of all of the gems, like if you searched at the time, Ruby LLM didn't exist. There weren't alternatives
Right.
or anything close to comparable with the Vercel AI SDK. And so that's kind of what I've been working towards is bringing the Rails ecosystem closer to parity with what Vercel's done with Next.js and their AI SDK.
Mm-hmm.
Because I would say, um, especially a year ago, Python probably wasn't the best choice for building a full stack web application. Next.js was. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
it would have been a lot harder to build all of these features that I built today and am showing in this workshop without Active Agent. So like that is the goal, is to give us that convention of how do I build an agent class and how do I render these view templates that are essentially telling the AI agent what to do.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see things like improving, summarizing, expanding on content. These are all just text or templates.
Yeah. Gene in the chat asks for a little bit of clarification. Where does the AI run in the app that we're going to be doing?
It runs from a controller.
Mm-hmm.
So similar to how like you might have a sign up uh, controller that takes a sign up and then sends an email. We have controllers that we can hook up these features to. The other one is the uploads controller. So when you upload that image,
Mm-hmm.
it takes a look at the image and sends
But
that.
then that is running. In our case, we're going to use OpenAI, uh,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's hitting ChatGPT.
That's what you meant by where is it running.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you could also run it with Olama,
Mm-hmm.
which is supported. So if you wanted to run your own model, looks like I actually have an update for Olama here. Why not? I'm not going to use it right now anyway. So we'll update Olama. But yeah, you can use Olama. I'm not familiar with, off the top of my head, a vision supported open source model, but there definitely are some. I think
There
Llama
definitely are
4
some. Yeah.
Llama 4 and others, but if you go to Olama's model directory, you can search by what supports vision, and they all are basically the OpenAI API spec.
Yeah.
So they follow the same format for the web requests that we're making under the hood here.
So shall we jump in and start to implement?
Yeah,
Okay. We have
let's,
a request in the chat to bump up your font size just a little bit before we get
that's a
started.
thank you for the suggestion. I completely forgot about that. This should be better.
Yeah.
We can go bigger if we want.
No, I think this is good.
Cool. And yeah, what I was just showing when my font was tiny um, were the different, let's see, I think it's this one that we're using. So the analyze PDF, analyze image is what we're using on the file uploads. And so it's going to render what we have in our SQLite database as a base 64 string, and then add that to the prompt context. And then that is what, when we call that from the controller, is going to be used as the context for that agent. So just like I was saying, these are controllers. So this action method here, it corresponds to this action view. So this action view is what is going to load that context. The image itself is a separate message, so you don't see that in this here. And this is me searching for Herb to remove it, but it's actually a reaction view to remove it. But yeah, so these are the prompt templates that are used by your agent classes to render content and context like instance variables like you would render to a user view. So instead of rendering it in a UI, you're rendering it in a message format back to your agent.
The way that I was thinking about this when I was first getting introduced to Active Agent was actually similar to how mailers are an extension of this flow of a
Yep.
controller action rendering a view outside of a regular thing.
Yeah, and if we go back into our assistance controller, you can see that it's a similar format. And I have had some feedback on this format. So there might be in V1 another supported API for how you can initialize agents as instances and then manipulate the instance of that agent. But right now, what it does is just like Action Mailer, it'll parameterize all of these these arguments that we send in with the with function, and then that will create a parameterized agent that we can call our different actions on. So if we look at the writing assistant, we have improve, grammar, style, summarize, expand, brainstorm, and that's essentially what's being called from the, where did it go? The assistance controller here. So
So I
it
think
calls
we'll
that
once we
action.
start coding, we'll show this. But we did get as this code was up, the question of what is in the context there that's being passed in.
Yeah. So in this case, the context is just the content itself.
The content, the markdown
Yeah.
file that's
Yeah.
being improved.
But what you might want to do if you're not just using this writebook example is actually load in a context record from the database. And that's where in your agent class, you can define a callback, like a before action callback, to actually load in previous messages in case it's user interactions, or if you're trying to load any additional information as like a retrieval augmentation. So if you want to pull, the current user and their account information, you could do that for like a support agent. And that's what you'd be loading into the context here. And then again, that gets loaded into the action view. So you have access to these instance variables that we're creating here.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, let me reset again.
Yeah. And Lucas asks if the context in this case is the same as the content, why do we need to send it at all? While you switch that over, I'll just the it's being given to the agent so that the agent can communicate with the LLM to do the task. Um, and that's why it's just being passed along in that case to the agent.
Yeah. Let's see. Hmm. Let's work.
Oh, okay. Lucas was actually asking why is it why is
Why do
it
we have this and
twice
why do we have
content?
this?
Yeah, yeah.
That's good question. I
It might
probably
be a
just
just
added
it
that
might just be a typo.
out of habit.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, there's actually an issue with the tags that I created. Not sure why, but that's okay actually. Um, I think what we can do is kind of step through how this is being used.
Okay.
Um, m- let's just, I was gonna go through step by step, but we can kind of step through and take a look at how the assistant controller ties into the what is in Writebook called HouseMD. It's just like a tricks editor that is now basically going to be replaced by Lexi. But so all of those little AI buttons that we saw are just going to be actions for the controller here.
Okay, so
And
we
those,
have a stimulus we're right now we're in a stimulus controller.
yeah, and so this stimulus controller is just going to send in the content that is highlighted. Um, let me see if it's correct. Log in again. And yeah, one of the things that I was going to say is the content itself doesn't have to be the entire content. So for the improve, it could be like improve this copy uh, while also giving reference to the full document. So when you say expand here, this highlighted section is actually what's being sent as the full content to the agent, but also giving it the context of the rest of the document so that it can expand on just that highlighted portion. Um, oh, and also, actually, how about this? Since my tags aren't working, one of the things I was thinking about, and Chad, I'll probably ask you for some help here,
Mm-hmm.
is streaming. Because right now, like I said, I'm not great with the whole stimulus front end, but maybe we can fumble through it together and use the active agent on stream callback to get the content streaming into the text editor. That
Okay.
might be a fun challenge. So we have working features, but as you can see, like I highlight this, I click one of these buttons, and the user doesn't really see anything until it's done.
Mm.
And so that's something that we could use streaming to give the user uh, a visualization of like the actual tokens coming in and streaming through. So let's see if we can do that for this one, the improve method. That's, yeah, that should be straightforward. So improve writing, will just send it to our assistance controller. And right now the assistance controller is just doing generate now, which, going back to the discussion of Puma versus Falcon, if you were doing this in Falcon, you actually would want to just leave it as generate now, because Falcon would handle this web request and anything performed within this action async. And there is an async jobs adapter for active job. I'm not going to get into that today, but if we wanted to generate later, then we would be able to take advantage of the writing assistance callbacks in order to stream
Okay.
the content.
Actually, I think we should go back to before we start changing things. I think it'd be good to do the walkthrough from the front end through those things to give people an idea of the full life cycle and where active agent sits at every step of the way.
Yeah, let's go in here. So yeah, the let's go routes.
Right.
Prove. All right. So these are the routes to the controller that we're using, and they just route to these actions.
Mm-hmm.
And then we
And the
pass the
assistance
params on.
controller is just what you've called the controller. That's not a particular. You can call it whatever you want.
Yeah, I mean, it could be like
Right.
orders.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing something like
And
that, or
right.
books, or
And
videos.
this is a
Just a basic
non-restful
Rails controller.
controller, but you could also implement this with a restful controller where it's like,
Yep.
an improvement, and you're posting to create an improvement.
Yeah, like
Yeah. I'm
if
just making sure that people understand where we're sitting in the app now.
I haven't dug into how Writebook handles their
Yeah.
auth and stuff, but
So then if we go over to the writing assistant agent,
yeah,
go back
this
to
is
that.
what the assistance controller is going to call.
Mm-hmm.
So again, when you hit that endpoint from the stimulus controller, it's going to hit your basic Rails web endpoint, and then it's going to pass the parameters on to this agent, just like you would, again, with a sign
A
up form
mailer. Or,
and
yeah,
a mailer.
or even a mailer if you're triggering that mailer from the
Yeah, after a user signs up, you post to an endpoint, you create the user record, and then you send a welcome email.
mm-hmm.
That's like a common action mailer workflow.
So if you
And
go
then,
over to the writing assistant agent, then there's a
yep,
few pieces of the DSL provided but this is the first. Previously we were in a stimulus controller and a Rails controller. Now we're inside of a class provided by Active Agent, which is the application agent.
the application agent's kind of just the
Well,
basic
yeah,
config.
that's true.
Yeah,
Active
yeah.
Agent base
So
is
just like you have like an application record and an application controller.
yeah.
If there's common things, like going back to context, if you wanted to say like before action, you want to set the user, for
Mm-hmm.
example, and then maybe you want to get like the user's account information and load that into the context so that the agent actually has like a user record,
Mm-hmm.
you would be able to do that. And then you could use this user record inside your views, including the instructions. So if you wanted just the basic agent instructions, we could expand this to say like not
Mhm.
agent name, but user email or name so that it can address. Um,
Right. I don't know if you showed the agent layout, but the concept of a layout for all of your, you know, text that the agent is using is can be pretty powerful in terms of, not needing to duplicate it everywhere.
yeah, it's actually an interesting topic because Anthropic just came out with like their concept of skills.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's similar to instructions, but maybe you want to load in um, your agent and have some kind of, way to load in different references for what the agent can do, so whether it's tools or MCP services that the agent has access to. You could add additional context into it through the layout itself. But this layout would then render for all of the system messages that are being used by the agent. Um, and then kind of save that. If we go back, I'm going to save that, to the writing assistant, and then again, looking at what this assistant controller is doing. Previously, it was saying generate now. So it's just going to block until it gets a response back from the LLM provider. And then once it gets the content back from the LLM provider, it'll just render the improved content. And then that goes back to the stimulus controller to handle the content that comes back. Um, so, yeah. And so this is just going to update the content based on which action was called and what content came back.
Mm-hmm.
But this is where we could decide that instead of doing this, I pulled up the doc, so I'll make it bigger. We might want to broadcast the message back
Mm-hmm.
and then broadcast all of the chunks that are coming back. And this is potentially something we can do in the next 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just need to figure out where we're going to broadcast that to. Um, that would be the tricky bit that I would lean on you for. Um, but yeah, let's see. I actually had someone asking in the Discord the other day about this because
Mm-hmm.
I think there's another reference to streaming, but this should just work. So let's see how it goes. And then, oh, this is actually a funny thing. I still haven't opened a PR on Rails yet, but I found out that Action Mailer callbacks don't actually support filtering.
Mm.
Uh, so if you say only for improve, which is what we want to do in this case, um, yeah, sure. Okay. If you do that in an action mailer, it'll actually ignore it and it'll do it for every action.
Oh,
Um,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't either. Actually, I think it's like stimulus reflex or one of those gems that Marco Roth worked on. Um, I noticed it when he was in San Francisco and he showed me how they had handled it in one of those like turbo powered gems that
I do
we worked
remember
on.
that, it used to be that mailers were not built on the same infrastructure as the other things, and that over time people realize, oh, these really are doing a lot of the same things, but we're having to re-implement it, and so it was moved over time to be
Yeah,
more
to be an
standard
abstract
controller
controller.
stuff. Yeah.
And just to use active support callbacks. And that's
Mm-hmm.
again going back to all of the gems they made along the way. I'm just taking advantage of all of the cool features that we have, these components built into the Rails framework. Um, and in this case, it's actually, there is another example of using active support callbacks with filters. For some reason, it works fine for Action Controller, the way they define it in Action Mailer. But it doesn't actually work in Action Mailer. So I had to modify my implementation to get it so that it would only run the broadcast message callback on this specific action.
So I actually, not having done this before, I'm wondering. So we have the method here, improve, and then that is doing stuff, and it calls prompt at the last thing it does. Does
Yeah,
that automatically chunk the response from stream the response from the LLM?
so that actually just renders the context.
Okay.
Let's just open the console and show an example of that. Save some time. Content. So in this case, when we call improve, it's going to call that action, and that action calls the prompt method like we saw.
Mm-hmm.
And all the prompt method's doing is rendering the prompt context so that now we have an object that contains the instructions as well as the messages with the formatting based on our action view for the action prompt. And so this doesn't actually hit the LLM yet. This
Mm-hmm.
just provides us with that prompt object that we can then decide that we want to generate now or later on. And this is what's actually going to the provider to get a response back.
And does that have sort of streaming built? Like where does the stream come in?
Yeah. So it's basically you're enabling it on either the
I
agent
missed the
itself.
stream true there. Okay. I, I
Yeah.
I had missed that.
Or
Okay.
within the action. Actually, there's no action in this example. Within the action itself, we can decide that we want this
Okay.
one to stream. And so that's just telling the context object that we send to the agent that we want to stream. And that's really just adding a parameter to the post request that goes to OpenAI or Olama that says stream the tokens back. And then that is where we get to handle the stream chunks. And so we can have the changes or the full content that comes back in that case.
Okay. I get it now.
And so we do need to update the controller, I believe. Or expand is what I wanted to do. And so generate now, generate later, that's where the generation jobs come into play. So similar with a mailer job or a
Mhm.
delivery job in Action Mailer, we have generation jobs in Activation.
Did you so we were changing improve, but you decided to change expand?
Yeah, I think it might demo.
Okay,
Actually,
yeah,
I
cool. I
mean,
just
I
wanted to
don't
make
know.
sure we were doing the right action.
Honestly, it's late, and I don't know why I changed my mind halfway
Okay.
through. Let me go
I
back
just
to
wanted to make sure we were in the right place.
it's either late or early, I forget.
It's
It
both.
isn't
It's
true.
both.
I know, right? I have been up for too long though. More caffeine. I finished my coffee, so green tea. Okay, you're right. It was improved. And yeah, the idea is we should be able to highlight some content and then click improve and then see the content stream back. So yeah. Later. And we're not going to handle the response here. And we don't really want the stimulus controller to do anything, because the background job itself is going to be sending the chunks, if that makes sense. So we're just going to send a broadcast using action cable for the front end.
Is this page already listening for broadcasts?
Should be.
Okay.
Or wait, yeah, that's actually, we might want to update this to do to render a turbo stream. Yeah. Go back to the docs. This is not a controller example. Well, I need to update the docs so that there's actual Rails controller examples in here. But I will just open the active agent source because that has what I am looking for, which is just an example of how to use and we have like 10 minutes left. If there are any other questions while I'm digging through, happy to field questions as we go. That's what I want.
Yeah, if there's anything in particular that people want to see or any questions, that would be great. Drop them in the chat. Vinny makes more of a comment, which is great, but I'll just read it. It's fascinating how the Rails community keeps reusing the same core patterns like controller and view across so many layers, mailers, jobs, and now agents. This pattern makes it easier to come up with a Railsy way to validate params, basically preventing prompt injection, or make the input normalized into a specific format like a JSON object before being passed to the LLM. We could also chain agents and actions and create workflows.
Yeah, that's something I didn't show, but like tool calls are handled similarly, where when you're defining a tool, you need to give it the schema so it understands how it can use one of your Ruby methods. And that is also going to be handled by action view. So it's just
if you could
a tool schema.
Yeah, there you go.
But this is actually something I'm looking at in a branch that's open right now using Ruby LLM schema for, so that you can just have like a Ruby definition. You can also use JBuilder or whatever you're using. And this just tells the LLM there's a get cat image method, takes no parameters in this case, or if it does take parameters, I think the tool calling has some examples of passing in parameters. And the agent can then send a message back that's handled by the ActiveAgent class to then call that method and return the result in another message back to the LLM. And it goes through this tool calling cycle until the agent is ready to send a result back to the user. See. And let's see what we wrote.
Oh, you left that only expand on there, by the way.
Thank you. Words. Let's see. Let's improve these two. Let's get ready to watch. Oh, so soon. I did say it was going to break.
Yeah, I would have been surprised if you got it in one.
Well, yeah, I think part of it is going to be the stimulus controller,
Yeah.
but action controller unknown format. Oh, okay. That's probably this.
Oh.
And probably man, shows how tired I am. I can't type improve. Last 3 times I tried to type improve, I did not get it right. Interesting. Anyone in the chat know
My
why?
take is that it's not doing it's not a turbo stream format from stimulus.
Oh yeah.
And you're only responding to that format, so it's falling out the end of that block and not having been responded to.
Let's what were you doing before? Rendering the JSON,
Mm-hmm.
and then the stimulus controller is just going to try to handle that.
Right.
Let's see what that does. Probably still broken. Wait, refresh. Different error. Well, it's at least in queuing the background job.
Right. So did it respond with unprocessable, or that was the previous request? Okay, that was the previous request. Oh, actually, that might have been, no, that is the request,
Yeah.
because the generate later was happening later. Undefined local variable or method content. If you go to the response, or rendering content.
Oh yeah.
I think you could.
Content.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't matter as long as there is a turbo stream that we can send back to, and it'll just say content and then maybe stream back. But I don't think the jobs are being processed.
So Juan asks, what are you looking forward to do with this gem? And also then do you hope that someday it will be included in Rails itself?
You know, Rhiannon asks me that all the time, and I don't know. I don't know if I want it to be included in Rails. I don't know. You know, Taylor Otwell is apparently working on a first party AI SDK for Laravel. And I had talked to him actually at Rails World last year, not this year's Rails World. And yeah, he just decided, I guess, this year to take a crack at it. And DHH has said it's just another HTTP like service, so
Hmm.
you could just do with it what you want. But there's a lot of complexity along with like prompt management and like context management, tool interactions, and those kinds of things that I feel like Rails should have. But I don't see Rails core merging this
I think
upstream.
it'll be I think it'll be a while before it
I
gets to
don't.
that point. And then like most things, it probably won't be directly merged in. It would be recreated, inspired by something. Even thoughtbot has
Yeah,
had a
which is
few
yeah.
gems pulled in, the functionality pulled in to Rails, but it usually ends up being rewritten along the
I
way,
think
not pulled in
basically
directly.
the same thing happened with what Nate Hopkins did with stimulus reflex. Like a
Hmm.
lot of the new turbo features that I'm struggling with on this stream were inspired by all of that work that him and Marco did.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I know there is actually talk about Herb and Reaction View as potentially getting into Rails in the next major or minor version. I forget what the rumors are, but yeah, I right now I just want Rails developers and people deciding what framework they want to use to choose Rails for their AI products. Like that's really my intention with the gem.
Hmm.
I have thoughts on like services for managing I'm currently working on a Rails engine that'll be free and included, but potentially also having hosted features for like monitoring and analytics for agents. But again, I just don't want to see startups using Next.js. I want to see more, you know, existing Rails shops sticking with Rails and new entrepreneurs choosing Rails.
Well, I think that's a great place to leave it. Justin, thank you
Cool.
for joining us all the way from Japan.
Yeah, I am gonna decide whether I want to sleep or go get ramen now. But it was fun getting to pair with you again and struggle along the way a little bit. But I'm glad I at least had a working demo at the beginning.
Yeah, and we'll be continuing the conversation over in the Discord channel,
Yep.
which Derek has placed in the chat. We'll be back in just a few minutes with Aji Slater and their closing keynote for Open Summit.
Thanks, Chad.